We are a creative living process. Introduction. Our creativity and our creative imagination are our most valuable assets and underlies all that we do and all that we are. The Releasing Unlimited Creativity Understanding is directed at stretching our perception about the nature of reality to open the door to empower our creativity and our creative imagination to access the depth and breadth of our inherent creative power and creative ability. Whether we realize it or not, we are like a river flowing to the sea. We exist between fixed but slightly variable boundaries. What is within us is basically the same as the water flowing in the river. The water is always present, but the content of the water is always changing. We are much like the river. We always look the same, but always changing and never really the same. Background. A process is defined as a series of action, steps, or decisions, often in a continuous operation, or a series of changes taken in progressive, independent order to achieve a particular result. A creative living process is a process that we identify as being alive or living, however we define life to be, or whatever we define living to be, which continually recreates itself. A creative living process as a process always has something going on and something is always going out. It is dynamic and changing. It is never the same. It's not static. It is living in the sense that it has life, it lives and dies. It is creative in the sense that it is constantly redefining itself or continually creating something not seen or previously experienced or something significantly different. Every moment in a creative living process can be something new and original, never before experienced, or it can be a repeat of the past in the habits it has created. We are a creative living process biologically and mentally. We each are a creation unfolding. Our life is the result of the creative creation process or the product of a creative process. But our unfoldment is not complete. We are still unfolding. Being, quote, in process does not allow us to see the process for what it really is and what is really occurring. Who and what we think we are is incorrect, for we are in process and always changing. The typical human views the creative creation process as existing outside and separate from themselves. We fail to see that we are a creation continually unfolding. Every human will admit that they age and their body changes, but few see our lives as a creation unfolding within an ongoing creative creation process, our biological process. For a moment, reflect on our body. It appears to be very solid, but we know there is mostly space between the atoms. Our body is composed of mostly water, air, and a variety of elements and minerals. In essence, our bodies are mostly space. The space between the molecules and the atoms is huge, yet we exist as a creative living process. We are just a collection of atoms and molecules existing within a boundary which we call our body. As stated, this process is much what can be described as a river flowing between fixed boundaries whose shape is constant, but the water is constantly changing. The boundaries are unchanging, but the water is always flowing and changing. The river looks like it never changes, but is never the same. So too our bodies and all of its cells, tissues, and organs. They are all in constant process of change. Each of these cells, tissues, and organs are constantly taking in new molecules and atoms that were not part of the cell, tissue, or organ the moment before. Whether the process be fueling, repairing, replacing, or somehow renewing, each through the nutrients and oxygen taken from the blood that was generated by the digestion of the food we eat, the air we breathe, and the water we drink. Each cell, tissue, or organ is now different. Similarly, every time we breathe, we release molecules and atoms that were just part of who we think we are. But this is true every time we perspire, eliminate solid or liquid waste. We are letting go of some part of who we were. This is true every time we eat, drink, or bring new material into our being to supply the energy we need. At the same time, this process is repairing and healing or creating something which we call illness or disease. But it's an ongoing process. It is a process created by nature and by life itself, including its ability to restore health, for all healing comes from within and is part of this process. Healing and natural repair appear to be part of the natural process of the body unless there is something interfering with the process. But this process is not confined to our body. Our mind, similarly, is continually ingesting the perceptions and feelings we have, and similarly, we have a response in bodily action as a result of those perceptions and feelings. We digest, transform, and/or otherwise manipulate that which goes within us, whether it be food, water, air, ideas, perceptions of creation, or whatever we take in, such that what comes out is often quite different than what goes in. Additionally, because of the way we have come to perceive reality, what we take in is altered by what we have experienced and put out. You see how we are the creators of the experiences we have by how we are choosing to view the experience. There is a truth of reality we experience in any experience we have, and that truth is independent of our perception. Then there is the perception of truth of reality that is created by our perception. Failure to consider our unfoldment as a creation continually recreating itself has a significant impact on how and what we observe and the conclusions we can and will draw from our observation. Feedback in the creative living process. Whatever view we choose to take to view creation, we have experience after experience encountering our world. We define ourselves by those experiences. We continually redefine ourselves by our experiences. Some experiences reinforce the identity we have. Other experiences force us to change who and what we think we are. Nevertheless, we are constantly open to change in the moment. The question is, how big of a change do we make in any one moment? We each will be changed by the experience we have. How much we are changed by the experience we have depends upon how significant the experience is to us. How significant the experience is to us, of course, brings up the fact that we are a creative living process with a variable feedback loop. The feedback loop takes the output signal and overlays or blends it into the input signal. The feedback loop biases what we see based upon what we have experienced. Hence, the incoming stream is not seen correctly but biased by the filters of the past experiences. The feedback loop also works as follows. We hold the belief in our mind and we somehow experience what we believe. The experience of that belief we hold reinforces our holding of the belief. This then becomes a never-ending cycle, creating a tighter and tighter belief pattern. Another version of this is that we focus our attention awareness on that focus is based on some combination of beliefs about that on which we focus. Otherwise, we would not focus our attention awareness in that particular direction. Having an experience of that on which we focused provides an experience of those beliefs which gave rise to our focus. The experience only affirms to us the truth that on which we focused, for we have found or had an experience of the beliefs giving rise to our focus. That in turn reinforces the way we focus our attention awareness into a fixed pattern of beliefs. Hence, we believe more strongly. As our creative life energy flows into the experiences we have, it expands into the experience. If we allow ourselves to have the experience without interference of our mind, this expansion can be felt as both a fullness of one's being and a calmness within one's being. If we are free to experience the flow of our creative life energy into the experience we have in the moment, the energy dissipates and we feel the fullness of being and a calmness that results from the free expansion of the energy, much like a river dissipating in the ocean. However, if we have an experience that is frightening, the next time we see or anticipate such an experience, we are no longer free to flow with the experience. Rather, we overlay our fear on the experience that we are about to have. That causes us to experience something other than which is. Similarly, mind uses this feedback loop to know how to lead us to what we like and away from what we dislike. It will look for a way to make life more enjoyable and pleasurable. How large the feedback is in any given moment determines whether we recreate ourselves new or simply repeat the past in a new way. When we create, most of us do not realize how we lose focus from our intention by simple little shifts in our attention as a result of this feedback loop as we respond to the world we experience. Most of us adjust our attention based upon what we are experiencing as we step out into our creative endeavor. We respond to the world as it currently exists, overlaid with our past experiences, rather than realizing what we desire may have to change our perspective. That is, we have to give up our past way of viewing creation relative to what we desire to create in our world. Most say and do keep focused on their attention, but we do not realize our intention changes and shifts in response to the world because of this feedback loop. We must hold focus with a single point, unwavering focus on our intention without changing it, regardless of how our past looks to shift our focus. Mind is a creative living process. We are a creative living process as a result of the way of consciousness and mind defining themselves. Consciousness can be seen as a flow of energy which is awakened to the awareness of existing. Consciousness is experienced as the awareness of itself and/or its surrounding. It then defines itself by the experience it has. Additionally, consciousness has the ability to change or redirect the flow of energy which gives rise to its existence. It redirects the flow by the choices it does or does not make. In doing so, it changes what it experiences. Consciousness then redefines itself and what it experiences by the experiences it has. Mind is the property of consciousness that holds the memories of the experiences of consciousness. Our mind is always changing by what we experience, for every experience we have changes how we view the world. Mind synthesizes and assimilates all that has been experienced into a view or perspective from which consciousness perceives creation. Based on that perspective, consciousness makes choices, decisions, judgments, and the like. These choices, decisions, and judgments in turn determine what consciousness experiences. The experience consciousness has then provides input to the mind to assimilate any experience it has. This new experience either causes mind to reinforce what we believe about life, and we believe it more strongly, or slowly change, if not sometimes quickly, dispelling beliefs that are no longer valid or effective. We are always changing. We are always either changing or strengthening the perspective mind has. If we think about this process for a moment, we can see how very quickly mind can cause consciousness to develop a very narrow and fixed view of creation. This in turn becomes a cage which mind creates that keeps our creative spirit captive. Similarly, mind can also cause consciousness to develop a broad and open view about creation. The nature of mind is always changing, becoming more flexible or more rigid. But we do have the choice as to how we choose. Anxiety of the unknown. We are always entering the unknown each moment we live, for we do not know what that next moment will bring. This in turn opens us to the anxiety of the unknown. Yet whether we realize it or not, by establishing patterns and habits, our mind works to control our world to minimize what the unknown brings to us. If we look at our external world, we see much the same as ongoing and seemingly never-ending, yet somewhat predictable change. To mention only a few, we see the trees grow and the flowers bloom. We see the seasons come and go. We see the sunrise and the sunset, yet each sunrise and each sunset is different from the last. We see the slow geological processes forming mountains and canyons, and the rather rapid geological process that experiences volcanoes and earthquakes. Every day we look outside and see what the weather is and become more aware of how quickly it can change. The external world is ever changing, becoming new and different. Sometimes the changes are quick and sometimes they move slowly. What is very clear is the change we experience in life is somehow very creative, for it constantly moves us into the new and the unknown. As multi-dimensional and infinitely creative beings, there will always be a part of ourselves dissolving and being recast into a new form. Something within is constantly being destroyed and reformed. It is an ongoing and never-ending process. We are just not usually aware of this process because we are the process itself. If we don't explore our internal world in the awareness of the creative creation process, we will never know exactly who and what we really are. Our consciousness is dynamic, constantly moving. It is never static or stationary. We are continually recreating ourselves. Any perception of stagnation is often only being the long interval between the turning points within the oscillation or vibrational flow into and out of form of what you are observing or experiencing within our being. The profound inner experience, the ultimate accident. One of the big problems we have as a human is when we have a profound inner experience such as the ultimate accident. The ultimate accident is an unplanned, unexpected experience which shatters one's perspective. It's called an accident because it's not something you can plan to have. It is something that happens unexpectedly. Any inner experience is integrally tied to what we think, the conditions which we find ourselves, and what we believe about what we experience and the environment in which we had the experience. Our problem is that the experience itself changes what we think and believe. We are continually changing ourselves by what we experience as described. A profound experience changes our perspective. This means the perspective that created the experience we have is no longer available to recreate the experience. We can create a similar experience, but it is a different experience, for our perception is different. This phenomenon has led to something called beginner's mind, where we are totally open to a new perspective. That is, we enter an experience without the biases of prior experience. In reality, the beginner's mind cannot be done, for we are forever changed by what we experience. We may put it consciously out of mind, but the experience still resides in our subconscious. However, we can enter a state of spontaneous and innocent creative play and allow ourselves to freely discover and explore whatever we experience. Creative play can bring us back to the spontaneous and innocence of beginner's mind. All that is needed here is to lose ourselves in play before we have the experience, to be fully open to the experience and be free to explore it. Impact of understanding we are a creative living process. Understanding we are a creative living process, continually recreating all aspects of our being over time, opens the door to realization we are creating health and well-being or creating illness and disease in every moment. Events like the ultimate accident give us the possibility of a more rapid, transformational way of recreating our life to better serve us. We just need to be aware and realize we are always changing in every moment. Every moment is available for us to change ourselves if we desire and look to choose to change.